Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me for the second half of my trip on the Amtrak Cardinal from Cincinnati to Baltimore, Maryland. I'm trying to highlight some of the sights along the 16-hour journey in each of the stops. If you missed part 1, a link is in the description. We're getting ready to pull out of our station stop in Prince, West Virginia.
Track 28, locomotive 129, departing Prince, eastbound number 1, clear signal, eastbound. Prince on 1, track 50 out.
As we pull away from Prince, we'll continue to follow the New River for quite a while. Unfortunately, it seems all the picturesque views have left us behind in the New River Gorge. This would be the scene outside the window for quite a while. Plus, that rain I've been worried about started to come down. At least we got to see the gorge when it was still mostly dry. Plus, this trackage is still very smooth. The trip so far has been very comfortable. I was kind of surprised. So far, we've only passed one freight train. We did come across this work crew, but we went by so quickly I couldn't tell what they were doing. A little while later, and we pull into Hinton. The station here is a former Chesapeake and Ohio railway depot built in 1905. It's located in the Hinton Historic District. When the C&O completed its route through the New River Gorge in the 1870s, the company settled on Hinton as a division terminal, creating a boom for the town. Rail traffic was mostly coal. Hinton was an assembly point for shorter coal trains from nearby mines that were then combined into longer trains. Those would then be sent east to the port of Hampton Roads, Virginia. The town features a large historical district celebrating its past as a major rail hub. If you didn't see part 1 of this trip, you're really missing out on some great drone work by fellow YouTuber Jackson's Drones. He's gotten video of the Cardinal throughout West Virginia. I asked and he gave me permission to use his videos in mine. Here's a video he shot of the Cardinal arriving in Hinton in the fall of 2021. Look at those colors. What a truly incredible area. Thanks again for allowing me to share your videos, Jackson. I really do appreciate it. You'll find a link to his YouTube page in the description. Well, it's time for us to head to our next stop, Alderson, West Virginia.
All right, here we go.
This also means it's time we say goodbye to the New River. We'll be turning east and following the Greenbrier River for the next leg of our trip. I must say, the views in the New River Gorge were simply stunning. I'd love to come back and visit some of these areas again. As we make our way toward Alderson, we go through another tunnel, this one more than a mile long. Here's a look at how much it saves in terms of time and travel compared to following the river. A short time later, and we cross the Greenbrier River. We're now on the east bank. We make a very sharp turn and then approach the stop.
Milepost 345.1. Repeat. No defect. Total axle 2 4 impact detector out.
No impact on 50. No Sulphurs, thank you, Amy.
This was the first time I'd heard Amy, or any female voice for that matter, on the defect detector. Although after listening to it a few times, I think she's saying impact detector, not defect in the beginning. But then she announces no defects, and we hear the crew confirm there are in fact no floppers on the train. A short time later though, and we get the same guy who I always hear. This one was on the same stretch, only about 10 or 15 miles apart, and he clearly says defect detector. Once more, Jackson's Drones comes through. He really does make it to every one of these Amtrak stops. He gives us a view of the Cardinal coming into the station. Alderson has a beautiful C&O depot next to the tracks, but Amtrak doesn't use it. Instead, there's a small little platform and shelter next to the station. As we pull out of the station, our next stop is White Sulphur Springs. This is our last station before crossing into Virginia. On our way, we'll go through 2 tunnels.
Check field 28 or 129 east of clear signal Fort Springs up. 2 Fort Springs, track 50 out.
We can barely see it, but we then cross the Greenbrier River once more.
CFX detector, milepost 324.6. No defects. Repeat, no defects. Total axles 24. Detector out. WR, no defects up. WR, no D's, track 50 out.
Then we pass through the town of Roncevert before crossing the Greenbrier one last time. We'll say goodbye to our river travel companion for good as we turn east at Caldwell and approach White Sulphur Springs.
Check field 28 or 129 east of 1 clear signal WS, clear west end of White Sulphur, now arriving. WS and west end of White Sulphur arriving, track 50 on the 1 now.
Now take a look at the Cardinal approaching the station from another YouTuber. This is video from Anthony Wyrostek. I asked his permission to use the video and he gave me the okay. Thank you very much, Anthony. I do appreciate it. His video shows us a little bit of the underside of the canopy. If you look closely, you can see the red depot on the left. It was built around 1931 for the C&O and was intended to replace an older wooden building. But passengers today do not get to use it. In fact, it's been converted to a Christmas store and gift shop by the Greenbrier Resort. And you can see it's still decorated in Christmas spirit with a red exterior and white accents. During the Cold War, a large bunker was created under the grounds of the resort on the other side of the highway. It was intended to serve as an escape from a nuclear bomb for the entirety of the legislative branch. The bunker was maintained until it was decommissioned in 1992 following a news story revealing its existence.
City conductor, engineer, station work fleet, crystal clearance, part White Sulphur. Track field 28 on 129, east on 1, clear signal, east to White Sulphur, now departing up. Clear 1, east end of White Sulphur, track 50 out.
Well, enough about the Greenbrier, we're moving once more. Next up, Clifton Forge, Virginia. As we roll out, we get a better look at the old depot, now Christmas building. It has what looks like candy canes all around it. As we leave, we head under Interstate 64. Then we'll go through a tunnel at Tuckahoe. At some point in here, we're crossing into Virginia. The blue line on the screen is the train's path. The red line is the border between West Virginia and Virginia. In fact, there are several small tunnels that we'll go through in this stretch, and we'll eventually cross the Jackson River twice before reaching Clifton Forge.
Dispatcher Jacksonville, TO 5028 with the Amtrak 129 over. TO 5028 over 129 over. Yeah, can I get that signal back from my OX cabin over? Yes, sir, absolutely. You can have that back over. Alright, signal coming down to OX. I'm going to line you down 2-track there over. Alright, I see it. Signal coming down to OX, and we'll be going down 2 when you line it back. That's correct, and going to be holding up here. Just give you a heads up, I'm going to be holding at 288, just waiting for a deadhead crew to come back from Hinton to get on a E21027 on the pad, and they'll bring you west, and then it'll be your turn up on the one track over. Okay, I understand, and I don't know if you're aware of it or not, we're about to take a stop at the fuel pad, get Buckingham order service. Did you catch the train ID? The one we'll be waiting on? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, E21027. E210, thanks, sir.
We came across this local standing idle just west of the small town. That's the Jackson River we just went over, and here's another small yard in the area. We're approaching the town of Covington, Virginia. It was around this time the car attendant came to take my lunch order. I opted for the baked ziti and meatballs. I decided to eat in the cafe car just to move around a bit. The meal came with a roll and a non-alcoholic drink. The car attendant took care of everything for me and brought it to my table. I would have taken video inside the dining area, but it was pretty busy and I didn't want to disturb anyone. As for the meal itself, well, this time everything was thoroughly heated, but there just wasn't much flavor. Everything was pretty bland. Hopefully dinner's better.
Amtrak look good, markers in place. All right, thank you. 28 on 129, East Gordonsville, South 6, 288. All right, stop short 288 on to track 50 out.
Well, this is where we're being held for that empty coal train to come through. Hopefully it's not too long before he gets here. Here's a look at where we are on the map. We'll zoom in to get a better look.
Sounded like he was pulling. We should see him shortly. Boy, seeing's believing.
I figured this was a good time to swap the batteries and memory cards in my cameras, and of course, I missed the engines as they came by.
You ready when we get it, Jay? Oh, yeah. Look right, we'll get a light, 50. All right, 210, you guys look good. Got your marker in place. Have a good trip.
Luckily, the train was through in just a few minutes.
Amtrak PO 5028 on the 129, East on 2, medium clear to 288 up. Medium clear 2 to 1, 288, track 50 up. And yes, it's hot. Yes, sir, yes, sir. It is that time, isn't it? Yes, sir, Amtrak 50, like to pull up on number 1 there, pick up some orders and continue east over. All right, I understand. 50's okay to pull up, stop on fuel pad, take off. Thanks, sir.
We're crossing the Jackson River once more and entering Clifton Forge. You just heard we're going to make a pit stop in just a few minutes at the CSX fueling depot in the yard.
28 on the 129, east on 1, approach signal, west in RAF.
Here's a look at where we are now. There are 2 turntables still in the area. The station stop is just east of where we'll be filling up.
Approach fuel pad 50. No. I like your vest there, Tim. All right, ready when you are, Tim.
Unfortunately, being toward the rear of the train, we don't get to see any of what's going on.
Amtrak PO 5028 on the 129, east on 1, approach signal, east in the RAF. RAF, here we go into Clifton, track 50 out.
Didn't take long at all though, only a few minutes, and we were ready to go again. As we roll forward, we get a much better look at the fuel pad. This is pretty cool to see it up close like this.
And that 214-1, Kevin, is a void. Yes, sir, you are correct. I see it the same way.
And there's one of the turntables we saw.
Amtrak 50 arriving from Clifton Forge. Robin with Starmaster and Snow.
And now we're pulling up to the Clifton Forge station stop. A few minutes later and we're on the road again. As we leave Clifton Forge, we're about to pass the C&O Railway Heritage Center. As our train goes by, we can see several passenger cars and then C&O number 7534. It's an SD40. But this SD40 was one of the last of its type to arrive on the C&O in the color scheme of the era, an enchantment blue body with federal yellow lettering and trim. Eventually, though, it was repainted with CSX colors. However, CSX then donated the locomotive to the Historical Society after workers at the Huntington shop fully restored the interior and the exterior to the condition and colors when it arrived for service in 1971. Next to it is a true showpiece, Chesapeake and Ohio number 614. This is the Greenbrier Presidential Express. It's a 484 steam locomotive built in 1948 in Lima, Ohio, followed by several C&O passenger cars. This was one of the last steam engines built and was designed to haul high-speed express passenger trains, which would have included the George Washington, one of the precursors to the Cardinal. Unfortunately, it was retired a decade later and then preserved at the B&O Railroad Museum in Baltimore before coming here. As we move on, we see more passenger cars. This looks like a great spot to come back and visit, but it highlights one of the frustrating parts of the trip, which I'll touch on later. Lastly, we see a lonesome caboose all by itself. Coming up, we're going to be taking a turn for the worst, literally. We'll be leaving the CSX trackage and entering the Buckingham Branch. I'd heard about this section before and how rough the track was, but didn't think it would be that bad. The Buckingham Branch Railroad is a Class 3 short line operating more than 275 miles of track in the central portion of Virginia.
And locomotive 129, east of 1 to Buckingham, clear signal at JD. Buckingham, CSX to Buckingham, JD, called 2323, 510.
Here's a look at the track layout as we leave the CSX line. You can see our track split off from the double track and then head north. We'll be on the Buckingham Branch for several hours. We'll stop at Staunton and then Charlottesville. Once we reach the town of Orange, Virginia, we'll diverge onto Norfolk Southern trackage until Washington, D.C. That signal we just passed was the control point on the Buckingham Branch to enter CSX territory. Unlike that smooth, continuous rail we were just on, we're now on jointed rail. That's I-64 and US 60 we're going over. We'll be rolling through the Virginia countryside on this track for the next few hours. Here we're crossing the Cowpasture River. We'll do this 2 more times as the river snakes back and forth. This stretch is pretty desolate and we're mainly going through a heavily wooded area. Our first stop on the Buckingham Branch is Staunton. Just before the station, that's the Depot Grill with several Chessie cars. Looks like a great place to enjoy a meal and see a train or two. Here's a video from YouTuber GcHawkins of the Cardinal entering the station. I asked and he gave me permission to use it. It's from 2014, but still gives a great view of the arrival of Amtrak number 50. It also shows the curve of the station. As it pulls away, we get a better look at the consist and my how things have changed. It's almost the complete reverse order of today's trains. The baggage car directly behind the locomotive, then 2 sequential viewliners, followed by a cafe car, and lastly 2 coach cars. Now back to our train as we head out.
Hey, BB, RTC, PO50 Amtrak 129 East. Looks like we're ready to leave on time at 2:38. Over.
I was pretty surprised when I heard the crew call out we were leaving right on time. I double checked, and sure enough, we were scheduled to leave at 2:38. Maybe I was worried for nothing, and we'd arrive in Baltimore on time.
In case needs, Meet 51, we're taking the whole and brand. Understand?
We certainly have left the beautiful scenery behind. Now we're in Virginia farm country. As we continue on our way, we prepare for another meet. This time it's our counterpart, Amtrak 51 heading to Chicago. We'd entered this siding at restricting speed, and just a few minutes later,
Everything's on the far side. Oh, brother. The pocket's getting heavier and heavier, man.
and it's gone in an instant. Looking at it a few times, it had the same consist as our train.
That's 2 very long and that's safe and home. All right, you look good as well. Have a safe trip on it.
Hopefully this slowdown won't last too long. Luckily it didn't. About 2 minutes later, and we came to the end of the siding.
50 Amtrak 129 East, siding to the main, slow clear, east branch.
As we keep on rolling, the train is noticeably louder than it was while we were on the CSX tracks. Things are rattling and shaking a lot more.
About 50 Amtrak 129 East, clear signal 210.4. 30 mile an hour, 205.
You can't hear the track very well, but this was pretty annoying compared to the smooth, continuous rail we had been on. Plus, we're not able to go as fast. This is a really extreme example, but this happened several times along the Buckingham Branch. Uh-oh, we're slowing down to a crawl again. We can see the speed limit for this area is 30 miles an hour. I haven't heard anything on the radio, so I'm not sure what's going on. Moments later, we make another diverging move. Looks like we got a family of rail fans checking us out as we go by.
7726 coming.
Well, there you have it. We're being held for another CSX train.
29 East, all stopped in the siding, east end.
Oh, it's some
2 minutes after stopping, and here it comes. I heard the crew say 7726 is coming. I thought that was referencing the engine number, but the lead locomotive we just saw was number 804. I tried to find a train symbol but could not. If anyone has any information, please let me know in the comments.
Right there, westbound in the green, everything looked good. Marked on the rear, have a good afternoon.
At 25 miles an hour, it took 12 minutes for that manifest to make its way past us. Our next stop is Charlottesville. A little while later, and we're going to be passing through the town of Crozet. YouTuber George Novey was nice enough to grant me permission to use a video he shot in this area of the Cardinal coming through. Also, take another look at that jointed rail. Maybe with the money it's receiving, Amtrak could share in the cost of upgrading this to continuous rail. George shot this about a month after I made my trip at the end of July. Thanks for letting me use your video, George. I do appreciate it. A little time later, and we're approaching the Charlottesville stop.
Mr. Gilbert Shaw, over. Afternoon to you, sir. 50 Amtrak 129 East. Engineer Austin, like position on your 4B 3144. Over. Engineer is Austin. Over.
Let's take another look at the map and see how much longer we have on the Buckingham Branch. Charlottesville has the blue circle around it. And I've traced the remaining portion in blue as well. So we're about 75% finished. Hopefully it goes by quickly.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shaw. PL 50 Amtrak 129 East. Engineer Austin. Got permission on your Form B, number 3144, for July 29, 2022. Line 1. Permission past the breadboard. That's milepost 182.3. Down to the station. Swap out crews at that maximum speed, and everyone's in the clear. Over. Mr. Shaw, we appreciate it. Here we come. PL 50 Amtrak 129 East. Approach Charlottesville, entering Shaw's authority, now arriving Charlottesville.
We're about to cross the Norfolk Southern Line, which we'll eventually be on before reaching D.C. A moment later, and we come to a stop. Charlottesville is home to the University of Virginia, so as you can imagine, there were a good amount of college students getting on and off at this point. It's also a fresh air break, so I got the drone out again and tried to get a little more video of our train. I could see a bus in the parking lot that travels to and from Richmond as part of Amtrak service. This was definitely one of the busiest stops we've had. As we pull out, here's a video by Charlottesville Railfan of another Amtrak train shortly after it left the station. I asked and he gave me permission to use the video. Thank you very much for letting me do so. As it approaches, we can see in his video milepost marker 182. I'm just wondering if that's 182 miles from Norfolk or maybe the ports at Newport News. Feel free to comment if you know the answer. Interestingly, this video is from December of 2020 when travel was just starting to bounce back from the COVID pandemic. And if we look, we can see this train actually has one more coach than ours, making me think there were more passengers on that train than there are on ours.
Heading 50. Station work is complete. Clear platform. That's the part from where we stand by the brake. That's restricted speed to the signal.
Alright, here we go. Amtrak 50 leaves Charlottesville, east on the main. Restricted speed to the signal. Run a brake test coming your way.
Alright, here we go. 16, 18.
1618 on the departure. Thank you. DB control center. F2 John, Amtrak 129 East outbound crew. We're on the move at 1618 over. Okay, don't see a safe train to me. BB local, we'll see them at Lindsay. Over. Okay, understood. Appreciate it. Have a good one. All right, thanks. Amtrak 129 east up.
That's the Rivanna River we're looking at. This is just east of the town. We'll cross that river in a few minutes. As we continue east, we now cross I-64 once more, or should I say I-64 crosses over us. This time we go under the highway, and then we'll cross the Rivanna River. We'll parallel that river for a while. Here we see our first Buckingham Branch diesel locomotive. According to Hawkins Rails, it's an EMD GP40-3 and was built in 1967 for the Milwaukee Road. Now we're at the Y in Gordonsville. The branch splits here, one line heading southeast to Richmond, but we'll be taking the north line for the remaining bit to the town of Orange.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Here's a look at the area on the map. You can barely see the front of the train as we take the sharp curve.
Order? I don't know if you guys wanted to, got like one last meal.
We can now see the Norfolk Southern line we'll be diverging onto. We can finally say goodbye and good riddance to the Buckingham Branch and its jointed rail. A few miles north of the junction and we're crossing the Rapidan River. Our next stop is Culpepper. As we pull into this station, this trip is really making me appreciate the depots built over the years that we've seen. This one was originally built by the C&O in 1904. It's hard to believe how old some of these stations are. Norfolk Southern wanted to tear down part of it in the 80s, but the town rallied to save it and eventually bought it. We're not here more than a few minutes and we're already on the move again. That's the Rappahannock River we're going over. Here we pass our first Norfolk Southern train. Shortly thereafter, we came to a stop. I must not have been on the right channel because I didn't hear any of the radio traffic about why we were stopping. 10 minutes later, and I got my answer. I didn't get a symbol for it, so I don't know where it was heading to. A moment after it zoomed by and we start moving again. Now we're pulling into the Manassas station stop. Directly across from it is this Southern boxcar with a Southern Serve the South logo. As we pull out a minute later, we see this beautiful red caboose. That's Lake Accotink we're going by. At some point around this time, dinner was served. I opted for the chicken a la rose and decided to treat myself to a glass of wine. This was by far the best meal of the trip. Everything was hot and flavorful. A little while later and we came to a stop again, west of Alexandria, Virginia. I didn't hear any radio traffic, but I learned we were being held for another train. It wasn't a freight though. Because we were running nearly an hour late, Amtrak dispatchers decided it was okay to make us wait even longer for one of its higher priority trains. You can see 186 on the right of the screen. That's a Northeast Regional which travels from Newport News to New York. It was still on time, so Amtrak decided to keep it that way and make us wait for it to go by. We would see this train again when we pulled into Washington Union Station. We can also see Amtrak 19 there. That's the Crescent, a 30-hour daily train between New York and New Orleans that also runs through Atlanta. I didn't check, but you can see it's also running behind schedule too, based on its color. As we near the Alexandria station stop, we can barely see the George Washington Masonic National Memorial. This is a Masonic building and memorial dedicated to the memory of George Washington, the first president and a Mason. It's pretty impressive to see in person, and it's just a quick walk from the station, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're in the area. As we arrive in Alexandria, we have a Railfan and their camera waiting for us. As we inch closer to Washington Union Station, we're now crossing the Potomac River. You can see the more widely known Washington Monument on the right of your screen, and then we see a DC Metro subway crossing from right to left. A minute later, and we catch a glimpse of the dome of the Thomas Jefferson Memorial as we cross over I-395. Now we get a glimpse of the Capitol building. Once in D.C., we'll head underground, shown on this map with the red line, as we go past the U.S. Capitol, Library of Congress, and Supreme Court before reaching Union Station. We'll pop out on the other side of the station. Here's where we'll stop for about 20 minutes while our diesel locomotive is switched out for an electric one. As we arrive, you guessed it, that's Amtrak 186 next to us. It's finishing up the engine swap process. A minute after we arrive, and it's pulling out. That could have been us. At this point, we're nearly an hour and a half late, but a quick check shows 186 is still on time. However, it will delay us 2 more times. It stops twice between Washington and Baltimore, so we'd have to wait for it while it made those station stops. That's our train at the very bottom of the screen there. Back at the station, I'm going to get out and get some video of the locomotive swap. This would be a great area to fly my drone, but unfortunately all of DC is a no-fly zone. We can see they've already disconnected the electrical cable, but it looks like the airline is still connected. It's funny, in my mind, these engines aren't nearly as big as the freight locomotives, but up close like this, they're pretty impressive. As we walk past our engine, that's the diesel that'll be taking over, number 643, a Siemens ACS 64. This is done because of the extensive tunnels leading into New York City and the exhaust created by the diesel engine. As we say goodbye, let's take a look around. There's an Acela train. They pull into a separate portion of the station. It's a dead end, a level up from where we are. Looks like 643 is ready to take over. It really is incredible, the power of an electric locomotive. 643 is rated at 8,600 horsepower. It's designed for high-speed travel between cities. It's able to accelerate 18 Amfleet cars to as fast as 125 miles an hour in just over 8 minutes. And for a train with only 8 Amfleet cars, it takes just 2.5 minutes to reach that speed. was pretty quick overall, but because the train has no power during the switch, it seemed most of the passengers got out to get some fresh air. It looks like our engine, 129, is taking over the spot where 643 was. I don't know where it's heading next, but it will need to be turned around. I believe that happens at a Y just a little north of here, then it connects with the Metro subway yard. It comes to a stop just a few feet short of our train. A worker comes in and lines up the couplers and then makes sure all the connection wires are good to go. Then he gives the engineer the signal to pull forward. Then he lets him know he's close and to stop. He once again steps in and makes sure the couplers are lined up. Looks like this is all signal with lights and no radios. Just like that, the two are connected. We can just barely see the locomotive pull back a bit just to make sure that it's a good connection. Once that happens, most of the people begin to get back on board, knowing the power will be back on in just a minute or two. Not knowing how much time we had, I decided to get back on too. I will say this was pretty neat to watch in person. While we wait for a new engine, it got a little too dark for my cameras for the final leg of our trip. There's barely enough light now as we pull out. So I'm going to show you a video from another trip I took from DC to Baltimore. It will show you the potential of Amtrak service, fast, smooth, and no freight trains to hold you up. If you've never ridden on the Northeast Corridor, I highly recommend you do. It's about the same travel time between Washington and New York City if you account for getting to the airport an hour or two early and then getting to the heart of the city. I'll talk a little more about this level of service at the end of the video. In this video, we pass two Amtrak switchers as we pull out of Union Station. Amtrak 798, a 70-year-old locomotive that started life as an SW9 in 1952. It was then rebuilt into an SW1000R. Next to it, Amtrak 541, a nearly 50-year-old SW1500 built in 1973. We then see a few marked double-decker passenger cars. We then see a DC Metro subway heading outbound from Union Station. We'll catch it for a second at a station stop before it speeds off again.
It definitely puzzle bumbling. It's not too bad though. At least it's all like as long as that stupid curl doesn't kind of come down over my forehead.
Then we'll see another Amtrak, but this one is backing into Union Station.
We're touristing.
I think that's a good one.
Do a little bit of color.
That's the Amtrak coach yard.
That's a great photo.
And there you can see the Y where the trains make the turn. Now that's the Amtrak Ivy City maintenance facility we're passing.
Kites?
Kites. Well, I mean, I think they all have tails. It just looks a little more unique.
You can see Amtrak 524. It's a rebuilt EMD GP38H-3, which started life as a GP40 TC built for GO Transit in Toronto in 1966. For some reason, I really do enjoy seeing those freight diesels in the Amtrak paint scheme. You can see it's followed by a string of diesels similar to ours. And we can barely see them, but there are several more switches in the background.
Breeze and wind and no wind. Yeah, it's so weird that. It's a nice photo, but
Here we can see another Northeast Regional. You can see the locomotives in front. It too will be turned in the Y before backing into Union Station. Yet another train passing by us. This illustrates how convenient the service is for folks along the Northeast Corridor. Meanwhile, Mark, on the other hand, runs push-pull service and doesn't bother turning its trains.
I don't know why I didn't play.
After going through several tunnels, we're now pulling into Baltimore Penn Station. It's not as grand of a building as Washington, New York, or Chicago, but it certainly has plenty of character. Well, it's getting late. Let's wrap this up. Hey everyone, you might be wondering why I'm back in front of Union Terminal. Well, it's because by the time we arrived at Baltimore Penn Station, it was just too dark to record anything. We ended up being an hour and a half late, and I was pretty tired from not sleeping. I've had a lot of time to think back on this trip, both good and bad. So I asked myself, would I recommend the Cardinal? Well, the short answer is yes. At least if you're a rail fan, I would recommend taking the Cardinal at least once. I think rail fans will definitely enjoy the trip. However, for the average traveler, I don't think I would. I just think you give up too much in terms of time and convenience. Now, don't get me wrong. Overall, I enjoyed the trip a lot. It was really exciting to travel through West Virginia and Virginia on the rails. I saw places I doubt I ever would if it weren't for Amtrak. And I got a lot of ideas for places I'd like to visit one day as part of a road trip. As for the train itself, the roomette was clean and comfortable. I think I easily would have been able to fall asleep had I not been recording everything for this video. The car attendant was very friendly and helpful. I even talked with him about why we got held for that Northeast Regional heading into Washington Union Station. The food was about what I expected. There wasn't really anything that stood out negatively other than us being 90 minutes late. But for all the pretty sights we got to see and all the wonderful towns we went through, that's all it was. Just a little glimpse through a tiny window. We didn't get to explore any of the areas, and for all the beauty of the trip, I don't think it makes sense to the average person to give up 16 hours and find a way to here at Union Terminal in the middle of the night. And if you look at the trip as a sightseeing opportunity, well, yeah, the New River Gorge certainly is beautiful, but you only get to see tidbits of it. The same with the C&O Heritage Museum in Clifton Forge. I wanted to get out and explore those areas and couldn't. I think that was the most frustrating part of this trip. I think another part of it was I wished I'd ridden at a different time of year. Everything was in full green for my midsummer trip, and because of that, a lot of the natural beauty was blocked. I think traveling during the fall or winter might offer better views. Now, like I said at the beginning of the trip, I've ridden Amtrak numerous times on the Northeast Corridor, and this was my first long-distance trip. Now, my roomette cost $400. That's a luxury for most people. I could have flown round trip to D.C., Baltimore, or New York City for half what that roomette cost. And I would have arrived in under 2 hours, and I wouldn't have had to leave in the middle of the night either. Now, a coach ticket would have only been about $60 for this trip, which sounds good, but sitting in a coach seat for more than half a day does not sound like a fun time to me. Now, I know, it's about the experience, but if you're going on vacation to the East Coast, for instance, you're losing an entire day by taking the train. 2 if you take it home as well. I just don't think the Cardinal makes sense for the average person riding most of the trip. Now, if you're heading from one of the later stops to the East Coast, I'd easily take it over flying. It's super easy to board and so much more comfortable than a seat on an airplane. I certainly think Amtrak has its place, and that place, in my opinion, is shorter trips of a few hundred miles. I've ridden from New York to Washington and from New York to Boston. Both trips were enjoyable, and there are plenty of times available that worked for me. I wish that there was a way that Amtrak could offer more frequent service to Chicago, and hopefully it's able to add service to Columbus and Cleveland. I would definitely take advantage of those routes for weekend trips. Now, I'm certainly glad that Amtrak offers the Cardinal, but I just don't see any circumstance in which I ride this train again. But I am looking to take the train for some trips out west, like the California Zephyr or the Southwest Chief. Those seem geared more toward just enjoying the views with the observation cars and more wide open scenery, even though they are extremely long trips. Well, that's about it. This video took way longer than I expected to put together. In fact, I think I actually put more time into putting this together than I did on the actual 16-hour train ride. I want to say a huge thank you to Jackson's Drones and all the other YouTube channels who let me use their videos in this. I really am so thankful to you all. I'll put links to all their channels in the descriptions. Go check out their channels and watch some of their videos. Lastly, let me know what you think. Have you ridden the Cardinal? What did you think? Did I miss something? And what about Amtrak in general? Would you ride it if it offered more service to regional cities like Chicago, Cleveland, or Pittsburgh? Well, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you've made it this far, I really do appreciate you sticking around. I can't wait to see what you all have to say. Until our next trip, I hope you have a great day.